I slapped the divorce papers down on the coffee table in front of Isabella Thorne. Your old flame is back in the country. The contract is over. She tore the papers to shreds and laughed, a cold, sharp sound. I've changed my mind. So, the third time Julian Vance decided to provoke me, I broke 3 of his ribs. Isabella stood over his hospital bed and screamed at me. Are you insane? The single sheet of paper, the divorce agreement, landed softly on the ridiculously expensive sofa in Isabella's penthouse. She was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, swirling a glass of red wine. The lights of the Manhattan skyline painted her beautiful face in sharp relief, but they couldn't cut through the icy, unapproachable air she always wore like a second skin. There, sign it, I said. Your precious Julian's flight landed at JFK at 3 this afternoon. He's probably just clearing customs. Congratulations, Isabella. 3 years of waiting. The real deal's back in town. This little show of ours can finally end. My voice was flat, devoid of emotion, like I was closing out a project file. Isabella froze. She didn't look at the papers, didn't look at me. She just kept swirling her wine with those slender, delicate fingers. After a long 30 seconds, maybe more, she finally turned. Looking right at me, she said coolly, "You're well informed." Her voice, maybe from the wine, had a raw, seductive edge to it, but it was still cold enough to cause frostbite. She glanced at the single sheet of A4 paper, then her eyes flicked back to mine. I stretched my lips into a professional smile. It's about professional courtesy, Isabella. A contract is a contract. You stick to the terms. The 3-year term is up. You get your freedom, and I get the hell out of your life. Isn't that what you wanted? A shield to deal with your family's board and all their talk about heirs and stability? A convenient husband to fend off the suitors you couldn't be bothered with? Now that the main act is back, it's time for the placeholder to make a graceful exit. I nodded toward the papers. Just a signature. Let's make it quick. Sign it, and I'll pack my things and be gone. I won't leave so much as a stray hair behind. Her expression was the same mask of ice it had been for 3 years. She picked up the single page. There wasn't much to read. The terms were simple. The contract stipulated I walk away with nothing but what I came in with. After a moment, she glanced at me, setting her wine glass down. You don't want anything? Don't be funny, I said with a slight smile. I did the job, kept it clean. I'm not the type to get greedy. I watched her raise her right hand, expecting her to sign her name with the same decisive flourish she used on billion-dollar contracts. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. She didn't reach for a pen. She grabbed the divorce papers. Ryup. The sharp, tearing sound shattered the silence of the room. I stared, dumbfounded, as the agreement I'd spent half an hour printing and checking was reduced to a pile of confetti in her perfectly manicured hands. She looked at me and sneered. Clean. My mind went completely blank. Caleb, are you that desperate to leave? She hissed, stalking toward me in her slippers. She got so close I could smell the mix of Cabernet and expensive perfume on her skin. She stared daggers at me, her eyes blazing with a fury I'd never seen before. Desperate. The word came out as a croak. Her intensity had genuinely rattled me for a second, but I found my footing fast. Isabella, are you out of your mind? When we signed this damn contract, it was all there in black and white. 3 years. Mutually beneficial, no strings attached. The time is up. Your boy Julian is back. What do you want me to do? Stick around and be the third wheel? Or wait for you to have security throw me out? I pointed at the shredded paper on the floor, a hot spike of anger rising in my own chest. What the hell was that? If you got a problem, see a therapist. Don't take your crazy out on me. She looked at me as if I'd just told the funniest joke in the world, the corner of her mouth twitching into an icy smirk, but the fire in her eyes burned even hotter. Crazy? You're right, maybe I am. I've changed my mind, Caleb. This marriage? We're not ending it. She bit off the last few words, hammering them into the air between us. I felt like I was in a surrealist play. The absurdity of it all extinguished my anger. I actually laughed. Not ending it? Isabella, get a grip. This was a business arrangement, not a fairy tale. The guy you've been holding a candle for 3 years is back. What is this soap opera act? You playing the devoted wife now? You got the wrong goddamn audience. I ran a hand through my hair in frustration, my temples starting to throb. Fine. You won't sign? No problem. Kinko's is open 24/7. I'll bring you another one tomorrow. You tear one up, I'll print 10 more. Let's see what runs out first, your temper or my printer ink. You're signing this, one way or another. This divorce is happening. With that, I was done. I couldn't stand to look at her beautiful, infuriating face for another second. I didn't want to know what twisted logic was behind this sudden reversal. I turned and walked out, needing to escape the suffocating, bizarre atmosphere of that room. The contract was over. We go our separate ways. It was simple. Isabella's sudden breakdown was just a complication, a massive, annoying complication. I hate complications, and I hate when my plans get derailed. But the trouble was just getting started. Isabella's incomprehensible refusal to end the marriage felt like opening Pandora's box, and the first slimy creature to crawl out was Julian Vance. The supposedly brilliant, charming, and talented artist Isabella had waited 3 years for. In reality, a self-important, preening jackass. The first time was at an exclusive members-only club in Soho. I just wrapped a meeting with a business partner, and as I walked down the hall, I ran right into Julian, holding court with a small entourage. He was wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than my car, his hair shellacked into a perfect coif. He had on that signature artist expression, a calculated blend of melancholy and aloof superiority that just screamed phony to me. When he saw me, the disdain and hostility in his eyes were immediate and undisguised. Well, if it isn't Mr. Hayes, he drawled, dragging out my name with a light, airy tone dripping with sarcasm. All alone? Isabella couldn't join you? Oh, that's right. She and I have been so busy discussing a new project. She's been swamped. He stepped closer, and a cloud of cologne that smelled like roses sprayed on a dumpster fire hit me. He lowered his voice, a venomous whisper meant only for me. You've been squatting in her life for 3 years. Don't you think it's time to move your ass? A placeholder is a placeholder. The real deal is back. So why don't you be a good little boy and disappear? Clinging on like this. It's just pathetic, don't you think? Isabella is too soft-hearted to kick you out, but you're not really starting to think you matter, are you? Behind him, his cronies let out a few muffled, sycophantic chuckles. Isabella's refusal to sign the papers already had me on edge, and now this prick was deliberately poking the bear. My hand clenched into a fist at my side. I took a sharp step forward. He hadn't expected that. The smugness on his face froze, and he instinctively flinched back. But just as my fist was a fraction of an inch from his perfectly sculpted nose, a cold voice cut through the air from the end of the hall. Caleb, what do you think you're doing? Isabella was there, dressed in a sharp black power suit, her makeup flawless. Her eyes were locked on me, or more accurately, on my raised fist. It was like Julian had found his mommy. The fear on his face instantly melted into a look of wounded grievance. He scurried behind Isabella, his voice trembling with manufactured terror. Isabella, you saw him. He was going to hit me. I was just trying to have a civil word with him, and he just snapped. It's terrifying. Isabella didn't look at him. Her gaze was still pinned on me. Caleb, this is your last warning. Stay away from Julian, and drop the brutish act, or I promise you, there will be consequences. My fist, still hanging in the air, trembled slightly. Julian's face, peeking out from behind Isabella's shoulder, was a sickening mix of triumph and relief. Brutish act. I stared hard at Isabella, searching her cold, protective eyes for a single crack, a hint of hesitation. There was nothing, just a frozen wall of ice, shielding Julian. The rage boiling in my chest was forced back down. I lowered my fist. It wasn't surrender. It was a feeling of profound, ridiculous futility. Hitting him now, with her standing there, was pointless. I pulled my lips into a grim, ugly smile and looked past her at the man cowering behind a woman's suit. Julian, I said, my voice low but carrying clearly. You'd better fucking pray that the next time we meet, Isabella is just as quick to stand in front of you and play shield. I didn't wait for a response. I turned my back on them and strode away. Behind me, I could hear Julian's voice, artificially loud and full of bluster. Isabella, do you hear him? He's threatening me. His voice, the smell of his shitty cologne, and the ice in Isabella's eyes were all left behind me. That first warning was a pebble tossed into a deep lake. It made a few ripples, then changed nothing. Or maybe it did. It made Julian fatally misjudge where my breaking point was. It made him think Isabella's protection was absolute. The second provocation came faster and was far more vile. A few evenings later, I drove out to a boxing gym I frequent in Brooklyn. I had just parked my unassuming black Bronco when a flashy, canary yellow Porsche screamed to a halt, cutting in at a sharp angle and boxing me in, its front bumper almost kissing mine. I couldn't even open my door. The Porsche's door swung open, and Julian's nauseating face appeared. Today he was in a peacock blue suit, his hair gleaming with product, that same smug, punchable smirk plastered on his face. TSK. Fancy meeting you here, Mr. Hayes. What's the matter? Bad mood. Can't take it out on a punching bag? I get it. A kicked dog has to go somewhere to lick its wounds. He leaned against his car, his voice lazy, his eyes filled with the malicious glee of a cat toying with a mouse. He sauntered over to my driver's side window, bent down, and stared at me through the glass, his face a mask of undisguised contempt. Isabella has been in such a good mood lately, he purred. She's been telling me so much about the past, the present, and the future. She said if her family hadn't pressured her back then, she never would have resorted to someone like you. Well, but now I'm back, and she finally doesn't have to pretend anymore with a placeholder she can't stand. He leaned closer, his mouth almost touching the glass, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Oh, and she also said that every single day with you made her skin crawl, especially the thought of having to sleep in the same bed as you. She said it made her, wham, a heavy, dull thud cut off his venomous little performance. It wasn't my fist. It was my driver's side door, which I had just thrown open with all my strength. The heavy steel door of the Bronco, carrying the full force of my fury, slammed squarely into the unsuspecting Julian, who was still bent over and whispering his poison at my window. Urk! A short, strangled shriek ripped from his throat as the impact sent him stumbling backward several feet before he crashed to the pavement in a clumsy, pathetic heap. His perfect hair was a mess, his expensive suit covered in grime. The smug mask on his face twisted into a grimace of shock and agony. I got out of the truck and looked down at him as he writhed on the ground like an overturned beetle. He was garbage. Skin crawl. I asked, crouching down beside him. You'd better pray there isn't a car door handy the next time you decide to run that filthy mouth of yours. He was curled up in pain, his forehead beaded with cold sweat. He stared at me with pure terror and disbelief, his lips trembling, unable to form a single word. I stood up, gave him one last look of disgust, and walked into the gym. Behind me, I could hear his pained groans and the gasps of few passers-by. This time, Isabella's timely protection had made it. But the trouble wasn't over. Julian's stupidity and his inability to learn a lesson seemed to be directly proportional to his narcissism. The third time was in the VIP lounge of a high-end department store on Fifth Avenue. I was just having coffee with a client from out of town, finalizing some details. I'd just seen him out and was heading to the restroom when I ran into Julian again in the quiet hallway. The bruises on his face hadn't completely faded, and he walked with a slight stiffness, but that disgusting arrogance was welded to his bones. The moment he saw me, a flicker of instinctual fear crossed his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a festering resentment, a need to get even. He probably thought that here, in a crowded, public place, I wouldn't dare touch him. He deliberately blocked my path, a fake smile plastered on his face. He spoke just loudly enough for the few people milling about to hear. TSK, can't seem to get away from you. Caleb, what's the point of clinging to Isabella like a leech? She told me herself, the sight of you makes her sick to her stomach. She asked me to tell you to get lost before she's forced to use her connections to ruin you. A kept man like you, living off a woman. This time, there was no car door, no glass between us. A small red light on a security camera blinked in the corner of the ceiling. The air smelled of expensive perfume. Soft piano music drifted from hidden speakers. Everything about the situation screamed, be civilized. Be calm. This is a public place. To hell with civilized. Julian's mouth, opening and closing, spewing his filth, was the lit fuse on a bomb. The anger from the first two encounters, the frustration from Isabella tearing up the papers, and this moron's relentless, escalating provocations. All of it finally blew past the breaking point. A wave of pure, incandescent rage surged through me. The world went silent. The music, the distant chatter, even the sound from Julian's still-moving mouth, it all vanished. My body moved before my brain could catch up. No hesitation, no warning. The instant the words "kept man" left his lips, I lunged forward. My right leg shot out like a steel whip, aimed squarely at his side. Thwack! Crack! A sickening muffled impact, followed by the distinct sound of snapping bone, exploded in the quiet hallway. Agate! Julian's scream was high and shrill, like a rooster being strangled. He flew sideways, slamming hard against the wood-paneled wall. Thud! The wall seemed to vibrate from the impact. He slid to the floor like a sack of wet cement, curling into a ball, his body convulsing. He clutched his side, fat beads of sweat instantly soaking his hair. He couldn't even manage a full scream anymore, just pathetic, gasping whimpers. The world was quiet again. The few people who had been nearby were frozen in place, their faces a mixture of horror and disbelief, as if they'd just witnessed a murder. I stood over him, my eyes cold as I looked down at the twitching pile of trash on the floor. Then I turned and continued on to the restroom. Trouble? To hell with trouble. There's a limit to a man's patience. Since Isabella wanted to make trouble for me by not ending the marriage, I'd make even bigger trouble for her using Julian's bones. This time, Isabella's timely protection was a complete and total failure. By the time the ambulance arrived, its sirens wailing, to scrape Julian off the floor, I was sitting in an interrogation room at the nearest precinct. When Isabella showed up, her perfect face was a mask of glacial fury. The way she looked at me was colder than if I'd been a stranger. I was the enemy. The smell of antiseptic in the hospital was overwhelming. In a private room at Lenox Hill, Julian lay on the stark white bed like a broken marionette, hooked up to a tangle of wires and tubes. His fluttering eyelashes gave away that he was awake. A doctor's report on the nightstand confirmed it. Linear fractures of the 7th, 8th, and 9th ribs on his left side, with significant soft tissue damage. Isabella had gone to speak with the doctor. I had been invited by her to the room to apologize. The door was thrown open with a violent bang. Isabella stormed in like a blizzard, her fury sucking the air out of the room. She didn't even glance at Julian playing dead on the bed. She marched right up to me. She was still in her work clothes, the black suit and heels, her makeup impeccable, but her beautiful eyes were burning with a rage so intense it felt like it could turn me to ash. "Caleb, are you fucking insane?" Her voice was high and sharp with fury. She raised her hand as if to slap me, but it stopped halfway, trembling in the air. Her finger, however, was pointed directly at my face. "Do you have any idea what you've done? In broad daylight, in front of everyone, you could have killed him. That's 3 broken ribs. 3. Her chest heaved with ragged, angry breaths. "What is the law to you? A joke? Am I nothing? Are you actively trying to go to prison?" The room was silent except for her breathing. I leaned against the cold wall, hands in my pockets, watching her melt down with a blank expression. Her purpose was clear, to stand up for the pathetic creature in the bed and tear me down. The scene was so absurd it was almost funny, and though I'd never had any real feelings for her, I couldn't deny that her white-hot rage on his behalf extinguished some tiny, lingering spark I didn't even know was there. Something inside me went permanently cold. I let out a soft, humorless chuckle. "The law," I said slowly. Then I looked over at the man, pretending to be asleep. "Julian, you'd better be listening, you son of a bitch. This time it was 3 ribs. Consider that the interest." My voice was quiet, but it was laced with a chilling finality that cut through the sterile air. Next time you dare show your face anywhere near me. Not in a mall, not in a restaurant, not on the street, and not in Isabella Thorne's fucking bed. I personally guarantee that you will spend the rest of your miserable life in a wheelchair. Do you understand me?" My gaze was lethal. "Caleb, what are you saying? Shut your mouth." Isabella shrieked, trembling with rage. But on the bed, the unconscious Julian flinched violently. He couldn't keep up the act. His eyes flew open, the arrogant swagger completely gone, replaced by pure, undiluted terror. He looked at me, his lips quivering, and instinctively tried to shrink back into the mattress. Isabella stopped short, stunned by his reaction. She seemed shocked at how visceral his fear was, how pathetic he looked. Mission accomplished. I ignored Isabella's murderous glare and Julian's terrified whimpering. Pushing myself off the wall, I walked out of that antiseptic-smelling room without a backward glance. The wheelchair warning worked better than I ever could have imagined. Julian Vance was gone. Not literally, but he had evaporated from my world completely. The coincidental encounters ceased. He no longer showed up at my gym, my usual restaurants, or anywhere else he thought he might find me. He made no further attempts to deliver his pathetic, snide provocations. It came to a head at one of the city's biggest charity galas. As Isabella's legal husband, God, the thought of it still pissed me off. The woman still wouldn't sign. I had to attend. Across the glittering, crowded ballroom, I saw him. Julian, surrounded by a gaggle of socialites, looking mostly recovered. He was back in a designer tux, that same pretentious smile plastered on his face as he held court. And then his eyes drifted across the room and met mine. Time seemed to freeze. The smile on his face instantly solidified. His pupils dilated in panic. His entire body twitched, and the champagne flute in his hand slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The chatter around him died. All eyes turned to him, but Julian didn't seem to notice. He was staring at me like he'd just seen a ghost. The next second, in front of everyone, he completely abandoned all pretense of dignity. He shoved one of the women beside him out of the way and practically scrambled toward the exit, nearly tripping over himself in his haste to escape. A strange, awkward silence fell over the ballroom, followed by a wave of hushed whispers and curious glances in my direction. I stood my ground, a glass of whiskey in my hand, watching the pathetic figure vanish through the doors. I could feel the weight of everyone's stares, especially the sudden, furious glare from Isabella, and a profound, undeniable sense of satisfaction washed over me. Damn, that felt good. Beating him up had been a release, but this was different, forging pure terror into his soul, making him piss his pants at the mere sight of me. That level of psychological dominance was a far deeper kind of victory. I ignored Isabella's icy stare and downed my whiskey in one gulp. The annoying fly that was Julian Vance had finally been swatted, smeared into a paste, which meant it was time to deal with the final problem. The woman who tore up the divorce papers and inexplicably refused to let me go. Late that night, I leaned back in the chair in my home office, a cigarette burning down to the filter between my fingers. On the desk in front of me was a fresh copy of the divorce agreement. Ever since she destroyed the first one, I'd had my lawyer print 249 more copies. They were stacked in a closet. I picked up a pen and decisively signed my name on the indicated line. Then I took the signed document and walked to the master bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. Isabella was standing with her back to me, in front of the massive mirror in her walk-in closet. She had just showered and was wearing a soft, silk robe that exposed the elegant curve of her neck. She seemed to be choosing what to wear to bed, holding up two different lingerie slips against her body. Hearing the door, she paused and met my eyes in the reflection. The face in the mirror had shed its daytime armor of ice and ambition. It looked softer, almost languid. She didn't speak, just watched me, her expression unreadable. I strode over to her. No small talk, no preamble. I held the signed divorce papers out to her. Sign it. Julian's gone. He won't be bothering you anymore. This whole charade can end now. My voice was flat. Her gaze shifted from my reflection in the mirror to the document in my hand. Her eyes, fringed by long lashes, lingered on the black ink for a few seconds. Then she looked up, back at my reflection. Very slowly, a curve appeared on her lips. It wasn't a happy smile or an angry one. It was small, faint, but it held something deeply unsettling, like a hunter watching its prey finally walk into a perfectly set trap. She didn't reach for the papers. Instead, she let the slips of silk fall from her hands. Then she turned to face me. The movement caused her robe to part slightly, revealing more of her smooth, pale skin. The strange smile on her face deepened. Divorce? She asked softly, her voice husky from her shower. It was the kind of voice that made you feel an itch deep inside your chest. She shook her head, a slow, elegant gesture, as if dismissing the most ridiculous idea she'd ever heard. Caleb, I think you've misunderstood something. She took a small step forward, so close I could smell the fresh, feminine scent of her skin. I never said I wasn't divorcing you because of Julian. Whether he's here or not, whether he's gone for good, it has nothing to do with us. She paused, and the smile finally bloomed into something truly unnerving. It has nothing to do with us at all. The moment the words left her mouth, a cold dread washed over me. Not because of Julian? Then why? Why tear up the papers, refuse the divorce, and even seem to condone his provocations? What the hell did this woman want? I instinctively tried to step back, to put some distance between us. But she moved first. Her right hand, hidden until now in the wide sleeve of her robe, shot out. In it, she was holding a small, elegant atomizer. PSSHD, a soft hiss. A fine, cold mist with a strange, sweet scent hit my face, covering my nose and mouth. My brain screamed a warning. Shit, what is that? Chloroform? She wouldn't. A wave of intense dizziness crashed over me. Isabella's smiling face blurred, the chandelier on the ceiling fracturing into 1,000 points of light. I managed to choke out, but my body was already shutting down. In the last second before I blacked out, I thought I saw her reaching for my falling body, her smile more vivid and twisted than I had ever seen it. God damn it, she got me. Then, complete darkness. I don't know how long I was out. It could have been a second or a century. A faint, warm sensation was the first thing to break through the void. It was on my lips, soft, wet with a gentle, pulling sensation, a firm, insistent suction. Next came smell. The overwhelming scent of a woman's perfume, mixed with the salty, heady aroma of arousal. It was so thick, so real. My senses came rushing back all at once. With a massive effort, I forced my eyes open. My vision was blurry, swimming, as if I were looking through water. The first thing I saw was a field of pale, smooth skin moving very close to my face. My eyes struggled to focus, traveling upward until they met another pair, just inches away. Isabella. She was on top of me. Her entire body was covering mine. Her arms were braced on either side of my shoulders, her face so close I could count her eyelashes. She clearly hadn't expected me to wake up so soon. She froze, and for a split second, I saw genuine surprise in her eyes. But it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by something far more intense. It was a look of crazed possessiveness, of a deep, almost pathological satisfaction. It was terrifyingly bright. She didn't pull away. She leaned in closer, her hot breath ghosting across my lips. "You're awake," she whispered. Her voice wasn't the cool, crisp tone of CEO. It was a husky, throaty purr, saturated with lust. The drug wore off a little faster than I expected. She let out a low laugh, a sound filled with a chilling intimacy and contentment. Every muscle in my body seized up. Shock and a violated rage made me want to throw her off, but my limbs were as heavy and useless as wet noodles. All I could do was force a few broken words through my teeth. You drugged me. Isabella, you fucking... She pressed a single, delicate finger against my lips, silencing my useless curses. Her body rose slightly, her gaze locking onto mine. There was no guilt in her eyes, no remorse. Only a fervent, obsessive focus. And then she spoke, her voice soft and gentle. "Caleb, actually, that day we signed a contract 3 years ago." She paused, a twisted, predatory smile spreading across her face. Her beautiful eyes curved into crescents, but they churned with a terrifying possessiveness. "I wanted to do this even then, and I wanted to lock you in my basement." My basement. Boom. A bomb went off in my head, obliterating all coherent thought. 3 years ago, the day we signed the contract? The basement. All the details I'd ignored. The strange, intense emotion in her eyes when she'd torn up the papers, her bizarrely passive reaction to Julian's early provocations. It all clicked into place, forming a picture so horrifying it stole the air from my lungs. She never wanted to let me go. She was never going to divorce me. From the very beginning, this so-called contractual marriage was nothing but an elaborate trap. And it was the prize she was determined to claim. An icy chill snaked its way down my spine. Staring up at that beautiful, terrifying face, I realized for the first time that I had fallen into a pit far deeper and more hopeless than I could ever have imagined. My throat was so dry I could barely make a sound. A psycho. Isabella ignored my accusation. If anything, the sick smile on her face grew wider. The finger on my lips pressed a little harder, tracing their outline. "A psycho," she repeated softly, a strange note of pleasure in her voice. "Perhaps. But Caleb, do you have any idea how hard these 3 years have been? Watching you walk around my home every day, my husband in name only, acting like a cold, unfeeling business partner. Do you know what kind of self-control that took?" Her body pressed down again, her heat sinking into me. Her breath, smelling of roses and something dangerously primal, washed over my face. "That idiot Julian," she scoffed, her tone dripping with contempt. "Who does he think he is? He was just a tool I used to provoke you." Watching him poke you again and again, watching the annoyance and anger build in your eyes. "You have no idea how exciting it was for me." Her voice rose, laced with a twisted glee. "Especially at the store, when you kicked him, when you broke his ribs. Caleb, the look in your eyes. You were like a cornered lion, finally unleashed. Ferocious, violent, filled with the power to destroy everything. It was so intoxicating. It made my knees weak. It's a pity I could only watch it on the security footage." As she spoke, she actually ground her hips against mine, letting out a soft, satisfied sigh. It all made sense now. Every one of Julian's provocations had been with her silent, and maybe not so silent, approval. She enjoyed watching me get violent. She got off on seeing Julian get his ass kicked. This woman wasn't just crazy. She was a full-blown, goddamn psychopath. "Get off me." I tried to struggle, to use what little strength I had left, but my arms barely lifted off the mattress before falling back. Useless. "Get off." Isabella sounded like I'd just said something hilarious. She lowered her head, her hot lips brushing against my earlobe. "Caleb, my dear husband, I've waited for this day for 3 whole years. Now that I finally have you right where I want you, do you really think I'm going to let go?" Her voice dropped again, becoming a horrifyingly sweet, obsessive murmur. "From that first night 3 years ago, when you fought for me at that club, I knew. You were mine. You could only ever be mine." The club? A fight? Fuzzy fragments of a memory surfaced. 3 years ago, a chaotic night, a tedious networking event at some downtown club, a drunk finance bro getting handsy with a woman. And then, right, I lost my temper, and put the fat bastard in the hospital. In the crowd of onlookers, my eyes shot up and met Isabella's. Her pupils were wide, reflecting my own dawning horror. That woman, it was her. The light in the club had been dim, and I'd had a few drinks myself. I never even remembered what she looked like. "Remember now?" she purred, smiling like a cat that had finally caught the canary. Her fingers traced a line from my cheek down to my throat. The look on your face that night, pure menace. Your eyes were like ice chips. You moved like a predator. That pig was like a rag doll in your hands. Her breathing quickened. Her skin felt fever hot against mine. From that moment, I made up my mind. I had to have you, by any means necessary. To hell with Julian Vance. To hell with my family's arranged marriage. None of it mattered. Only you. Only that wildness inside you, Caleb. That vicious streak. That's what I wanted. She lowered her head, and her rose-scented lips crushed down on mine. It wasn't a kiss. It was a brand. A declaration of ownership. It was brutal, demanding, and pathologically possessive. Her tongue tried to force its way past my clenched teeth. MMPH. I twisted my head violently, using the last of my strength to break the suffocating contact. Get OFF. I roared, my voice raw and distorted with rage and helplessness. My resistance only seemed to excite her more. Isabella lifted her head, not with anger or rejection, but with a renewed, twisted gleam in her eyes. So wild. I love it. She panted, a feverish blush coloring her cheeks, her eyes glazed over and dangerous. This is what I love about you, Caleb. The more you fight, the more I want you. Taming an untamable lion. Isn't that the greatest prize of all? Her eyes raked over my body greedily. These 3 years, I've fantasized about this every single day. Fantasized about locking you up, making you mine and mine alone. Fantasized about this body. These powerful hands, these furious eyes, all of it burning just for me. Her fingertips, trailing fire, slid across my collarbone and down my chest, an owner appraising his property. And now, she leaned down again, her hot lips searing a path down my neck. Now, I finally caught you. God damn it. Fuck. I'm supposed to be on top. For the first time since I was a kid, tears of sheer, helpless humiliation streamed from my eyes.